Hi, I'm Garm and this is Midgardia RPG's cool crowdfunding show. I'm here today with Zip. How's it going?
It's going really well. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. I saw your project. It looked interesting, so I figured I'd hit you up. So,
Yeah, I would love to talk about it.
well, why don't you tell us a little bit about Galder's Gazetteer?
All right, so Galder's Gazetteer is a community project. It started out about a year ago. I saw a post on Reddit. A young guy named Lawrence had written that he had a rare form of cancer and only weeks to live. And he had heard about other people writing to the wizards, the kid Noah who got the Obelix put into Mordecai's Tome of Foes. And he thought that was really cool. He really wanted a way for someone for his character to be remembered. And well, eventually Wizards did respond. They said, "Hey, we've heard this plea. We'll go ahead and put your character Galder, some of his equipment, in the last laboratory of Calawish, which is on sale right now. The proceeds of which go to Extra Life, so check that out." But before Mike Merles and team got back to him, a whole bunch of other folks on Reddit also heard about this, and they had an idea that while they couldn't make it official, they couldn't make his character an official part of the game's lore. They could they could help him out their own way. They could make his NPC Galder an NPC. They can make his character Galder an NPC in their world, so they can keep living on in his stories. So now hundreds, if not thousands, of people have Lawrence's character as an NPC, an official NPC in their worlds, living on, and so his legacy is just continuing. It's almost been it's just over a year since his passing, and his family and friends are absolutely excited that we've gotten this far. We're putting out an entire book that describes Galder and his journey across all of these different worlds that he's been to.
That's super cool. It's it, words are really hard. It's unfortunate because he was 21. I think I looked at the
Mm-hmm.
yeah. That's it happens unfortunately.
Yeah, what was well, since I have this moment, it was what was really tragic is he kept going to the doctor complaining that something was wrong. But the doctors weren't really taking him seriously. They kept saying, "Oh, you're young, you're healthy, we'll figure something out." But there was something wrong. And I finally found this orange-sized tumor on his bladder. It was way too late. The doctors were looking in the wrong spot because there wasn't a strong enough advocacy for youth patients. So that's something that his mother is really, really strong. She really, really cares about is getting that message out there that it's okay to advocate, especially that for potential cancer patients, that you have to be in charge of your health.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people who have dealt with less severe but certainly similar things, having problems go overlooked just because the doctor goes, yeah, whatever. Um, yeah, so
Yeah, but what I want to talk about maybe is the book itself, right? Because remember the
yeah,
premise is this wizard Galder visits all these different worlds. So the idea of the Kickstarter is once we get this book published, all the sales of the book are going to fund youth cancer research. All the proceeds from the sales are going to be donated to the Cancer Research Institute. But the book itself, inside there, because Galder travels to all these different worlds, it is filled with content from all these different worlds. As one of the rewards for the Kickstarter, people have the option of submitting their own content into the book. So you can just, buy the hardcover book, or you can buy the hardcover book and submit a spell from your world, something that the Galder Wizard would have observed in your homebrew universe. And I think that's a real fitting way to honor his legacy and to get a bunch of the people from the community involved in this project.
yeah, absolutely. That's super cool. So how did you find out about all this? Like, were you around for the original thread or?
Yeah, I saw the original thread, and like it just really grabbed onto me. Professionally, I work in biotech product development. What that means is in the working world, I spend a whole lot of time looking over cancer researchers, cancer potential cancer therapies, evaluating them, saying, okay, this is good, this should get our attention, and this one not so much. And doing that day in and day out it becomes kind of numbing. And sometimes it takes something like this to bring everything back into focus. That every data point has a face behind it. Everyone is a human. There's a story behind it. And it just seemed like a great opportunity to sort of use this platform I have on my YouTube channel to really do some good. And I took it, and I am thrilled by the positive response I've gotten from everybody.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, so why don't you? I know it's because of the nature of the project, not everything's
Mm-hmm.
in the book, but
Mm-hmm.
can you give us an example of some things you do have?
Okay, well, I needed to be careful here because I wasn't sure how many people would volunteer to submit content, right? Like everyone could have backed the Kickstarter just buying the book, and then I'd have to write 200 pages myself. So I took some precautions, right? I've been writing for about a year now, and I have maybe 50 or 70 pages of content that I can put in there to fill it up. And so traditionally, what an expansion looks like for Dungeons and Dragons or fifth edition is they just give you more player options, right? They'll give you more archetypes, they'll give you more ancestries, maybe a few new spells, things like that. But I want to do something a little bit different. I want to make a more traditional game expansion where you add new mechanics and then have features that key off of them. Like imagine an expansion for Dominion or Pandemic, right? They add a new mechanic in there and have lots of things that play around with that mechanic. So in Galder's Gazetteer, I'm trying to really expand 5th edition in a couple of different ways. The game has been around long enough that I feel like advanced DMs and players can get kind of fiddly with the rules. So things I'm adding on are new conditions. And I think that is huge because conditions are really like a load bearing element of the game. They do a whole lot of functional support. And so if we can expand the number of conditions, there's a whole lot we can do with, new classes, new class features, new spells, new monsters. So something else that I'm adding, really sort of expanding on to fifth edition, is with the martial options. That I took a whole bunch of polls on Twitter, seeing what people wanted out of, what people really thought was missing out of fifth edition, and options for martial classes is always on the top of the list. And so another thing I learned that from these polls, my initial thought was, okay, give martial users more weapons, right? Exotic weapons were really cool. People like the Book of Nine Swords having special weapon feats and things like that. But it turns out that wasn't the case. This is why we have to do playtesting and surveys, right? What I found out what people really want is more actions to do. So I'm writing up a couple of new actions. I have 4 new actions that anyone can take. I have 1 new reaction, and then I have 4 specific like martial options. They're going to key off of the extra attack feature. Because right now in 5th edition, when you take the extra attack action, one of your actions, you can use one of those attacks to like grapple somebody or shove somebody. And I was thinking, well, what else could we do? There's something else that we can do with the extra attack feature that spends that extra attack as a resource. And it's nice too because it gates these features behind extra attacks so they're exclusive to martial classes because there's the ones who want more tools.
Right. And yeah, I play a lot of melee fighters and barbarians and stuff, and I do like hitting things with my axe, but around the 20th time in a section, I'd say I hit it with my axe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't it be cool instead of doing like extra attack, you can somehow instead of swinging twice, you could take one super powered attack, or maybe you can hit them once and then do something else, like you can drive your blade in deeper. I
Yeah,
think that would be really cool.
that'd be sick.
And the last thing we're really trying to expand in this is we're going to expand ways for players and DMs to use the environment. Uh, Overland travel is something that gets mentioned. People really want a lot more support for, and so we're sort of addressing that with environmental templates. These are just things you can slap a DM can slap onto a battlefield to make the game more tactically interesting. That instead of having to build unique battlefields for each encounter or just having to rely on elevation or cover, you could slap something on there, sort of like a portable layer for a bad guy that can be used again and again and again. In the playtest pack you can check out, we have a haunted template. You can slap on something to make it a haunted area, and we have a desert template, something you can just slap onto a blank surface and somehow becomes like a desert terrain. They're really cool. I suggest people check those out.
Yeah, that's super cool. D&D, well, 5th edition at least, kind of lacks in those tactical options.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I missed some of them from earlier stuff.
Yeah, so I like having tactical elements that are easy to implement, right? Like it's easy to make things more and more and more and more complex. But that's not really doesn't really have the same sort of satisfaction of something that is elegant. It adds depth without adding a whole lot of fiddly complexity.
Yeah, we don't want to reintroduce the 3.5 hell of so I wonder what modifiers I get on every one of these actions. Well, I've got a +1, a +2, a
Yeah.
-5. And it hurts. Oh, I get a multiplier here too.
Oh, you have to have like a whole stack of note cards just to figure out what you're doing on your turn.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Hmm.
there are some things I missed from 3.5. There were a lot I don't, and that's high on the list. Advantage is the best thing about 5th edition. Or advantage,
Yeah.
disadvantage, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah. So elegant. Which brings us right back to that, yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, what's the classic quote? Any idiot can make something more complicated, but it takes a genius to simplify it, or something like that.
Yeah. That's exactly my my sort of design philosophy here. Is that we were trying to add depth, as much depth as we can, with adding the minimum amount of complexity and friction.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool. I'm looking forward to even just that. I For a long time my adventure design philosophy was like pick a mechanic, build an adventure around it. Like I made the players venture through an acid swamp once. That was
Oh,
fun.
that's cool.
Yeah, it was in Star Wars Saga edition, so they had like hazmat suits, but every time they took more than 10 damage, it would pierce a hole in it, and they'd have to spend an action or an attack patching it back up with duct tape. That was like they could choose not to do that and just take more damage over time. So it was like a nice little option there.
Yeah, exactly. It gave them a meaningful choice.
Exactly. That was fun. I like acid swamps. Ugh. Well, that's super cool. Do you have any other elements of this that you'd like to highlight while we're at it?
Let me think about this for a second. So the biggest challenge here is going to be this playtest process, because this is something that a lot of people are going to wonder about, I'm sure. That we have a whole bunch of people from the community submitting content. How are we going to make sure that it's all, nice and balanced and can play correctly? So this is going to be a multiple step process. We have signed over 200 tables up to be part of our playtest. And so we're going to divide it out into packets. If you check my YouTube channel, I consider myself like I'm an expert on how the D&D Next playtest packet or playtest process worked. So I'm going to try to mimic that as closely as possible. So we're going to send out to these groups a very basic bit first, something that's fundamental, like the conditions or the new actions, to see how those play. And then while those are being refined, I'll be looking and reviewing, and not just me, but the whole editorial team are going to be reviewing the content that people submitted. And once we parse it, make sure that it actually follows fifth edition rules, we'll be sending those out. And so we're stratifying the playtest content, so people are getting manageable chunks, while at the same time being aware that all of the stuff needs to get done. So there is a process behind it, and so I just want to reassure people that a lot of thought has been going into how to make sure that this book is quality.
Yeah, because that can be a concern. As much as I do adore the D&D community, I have seen some things on DM's Guild. Oh boy, that's not even getting into like the Unearthed Arcana subreddit. Love you
Yeah, yeah,
guys,
yeah.
but anyway, before I piss off everybody on Reddit,
So I
so
think something else that I might want to talk about here is why I decided to do it this way. 'Cause something that people have been bringing up is, well, why did you bother to gate content submission behind being a backer? Wouldn't it have been a better project if you just opened it up to everybody, looked at all of this homebrew, and then chose the very best to go into the book? And the real truth behind that is it's a matter of logistics, right? Is that already we have over 100 pieces of content and over 100 different elements of the game design that we need to play test, edit, and review and get out to the people. Now imagine if we had opened that up to everybody. That's like 3 or 4 times as much work. And most of those people wouldn't have bought the book anyway. So by saying, hey, only the people who buy the book get to submit, we're saying that, okay, if you have a vested interest in making sure this book is good, you can go ahead and contribute. And it also limits the amount of work that I have to do to make sure that what I am paying attention to is going to be the good stuff that's actually going to get into the book. I hope that was clear the way I described that.
yeah, absolutely, and it's not the first project to have done that. Kobold Press
Mm-hmm.
with their Deep Magic did a similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember if we submitted a spell for that or not. I don't know. We had the option. I don't know if we actually got
Yeah.
around to it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, it again. I've looked through a lot of third-party and playtest content, and it takes time, and sometimes you don't realize immediately that some of it is bad. um,
Yeah, I had to set a
yeah,
realistic goal that I could achieve, right? Like if I could raise, $100,000 and take, a year and a half off to do this full time, I would have loved to do that. But I'd rather do something than do nothing at all,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Having an absolutely perfect book that doesn't ever get published is not going to help anybody. This is something that we could do to honor Lawrence.
Never let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yes, exactly.
So speaking of publishing, what's the long term plan for this product after the Kickstarter?
So after the Kickstarter is over and the book gets, well, after the book gets published, we get all the playtests and all the art and the layout done. It's going to be published on Drive Through RPG. The book will be for sale there, and 100% of those sales, 100% of the proceeds are going to be donated to the Cancer Research Institute. So once the backers get their book, it's going to be up there, and every single sale after that is going to go straight to a charitable cause.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And there's I mean, it's a good cause. There's not much else to say about it. We've done fundraisers for children's hospitals and stuff, and it's hard to think of a more I don't want to say pure, but like a more unambiguously good cause than like, hey, there's kids with cancer, we should help out with that, or various other maladies in the case of children's hospitals.
Yeah, if you give people the opportunity to do the right thing, they want to do it. That's the thing, is you have to make it easy for people to opt in. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, hey, don't just, give money because, it will make you feel good. Give money because it's going to make you feel good and you get the thing you want anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And, more content is always good.
Yeah.
I have an unreasonable amount of 5e things that I own. Very few physical, so you can't see much of it behind me, but, boy. Yeah, I think that about covers it, since a lot of the content doesn't technically exist yet. It's an interesting model.
Well, yeah. I mean, have you got a chance to look at the playtest packet yet?
I meant to, and then I kind of forgot.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. So the playtest packet has 4 of the proposed 9 conditions. I did a live stream where I sort of just did some like rough design on the conditions, and I chose the 4 most prominent ones, the 4 most interesting ones, and I refined them a bit and I pushed them out there. So now characters can become bloodied, which is, remember from 4th edition. And so bloodied is going to be mostly a delivery method. Like if you are bloodied, you are also X. And the way the bloodied rule works is if you get knocked down below half your hit points, hit dice can only restore you up to almost half. So if you get bloodied, you stay down there until you receive magical healing or take a long rest. So it gives a bit of grittiness to the game. Not something that it's pretty easy to overcome because, again, bloody is mostly going to be for a delivery method. If you are bloodied, you also get a bonus attack. If you are bloodied, you also get advantage on saves. If you are bloodied, you also take extra damage, things like that. The second condition we pushed out there is the burned condition. Now, burned essentially gives people vulnerability to the type of damage that first burns them. And this is something I think people have really been wanting. You see a lot of talk about, oh, there's not enough uses for damage types, not enough vulnerabilities, not enough resistances. And there's a good reason for that, because vulnerability can easily become an I win button. You just figure out the certain combinations of spells and damage, and this is your default response to anything. Just burn them, give them vulnerability, and then whap them down. But I think if we are careful, we can still add a nice tactical element to this game. We also included the doomed condition, which is something that I think is just really rich with story, right? As soon as you say that, like, people get ideas in their head. Oh my gosh, I got cursed. There's a hag after me. And the way it's worded right now is what doomed does is it gives you disadvantage on death saves, which is, okay, obviously awesome. And then it also minimizes your healing dice. Like whenever you roll dice to restore hit points, you get the minimum number. So cure wounds doesn't work as well. Your hit dice don't work as well. Things like that. The grave is calling your soul. Oh, and the other condition that we put into playtest is despondent. And this is sort of mimicking sort of like depression. Or like Frodo and when he puts on the ring, or when the Dementors attack in Harry Potter. Something that sort of sucks the liveliness out of you and feels that there's no hope left. And so we represent that by saying you cannot have advantage on any social ability check, which is cool because it means you can't get rid of disadvantage. So if something gives you disadvantage, you can never have advantage to get rid of it. And it also doesn't allow you to add your proficiency bonus to any of your ability checks. So even though you might be skilled at this, you're so apathetic that it's not showing anymore. And so those are some cool things we did the conditions to sort of impart new story elements and also sort of tweak the mechanics.
Finally, I can simulate having clinical depression.
Yes, exactly, right?
I mean, I've already got that one down, actually, but... Sorry, it wasn't that funny. Yeah, that's super cool. I like the sound of the burn one. And you can get that for any type of damage? Or
I think I listed in the playtest there's only specific types, but it's not just fire. It's like fire, ice, acid, things like that.
Yeah, frostbite. Frostbite sucks.
Hmm.
You get psychic burn.
Is that like a mental scarring? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
don't want to think about that no more.
Yep. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. There's properly balanced. There could be a lot of interesting uses for that.
Hmm. Hmm. Because, like I said at the start of this, conditions are really a load-bearing feature of the game. Like uh, a lot of mechanical weight gets put through the condition system, and so if we expand the conditions, we just gave ourselves a whole new set of tools to play with.
Yeah. Somebody pointed out to me that bleeding isn't actually a condition in fifth, or a condition in fifth. I'm like, how did I never realize that?
There's
That
like a
seems
lot of like what I call silent conditions, things that aren't like listed in Appendix A, but still like count as conditions. Hidden is a great one.
right.
Surprised, it acts like a condition, but it's not. Things like that.
I love 5e's mechanical consistency. It's great. Um, I mean, okay, it's leaps and bounds better than every previous edition of D&D, but
Hmm.
oh god, I don't miss 3.5 is hell. Sorry to everybody who
3.5 is
likes.
the game that I want to play, but I will never ever DM.
Oh, I can't believe there's trap options in it, man. Who designs a game and goes, I should make things suck for fun?
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, I can see like their reasoning behind it. Oh, this is part of the fun of the game is
Hmm.
learning the system. But it just creates this barrier for new players. Like when you show up at a table and someone's animal companion is better than your character, you just
Yeah,
realize that, oh, this is not the game for me.
yeah. Or if you're just like, oh man, I want to make like a luchador or something. Like, oh, it turns out grappling just straight sucks forever intentionally.
Yeah. You have a
What?
long sword? No, you need to have a spiked chain. What are you doing?
A longsword in a fantasy setting? How droll. Oh, we're in a better place now, thankfully.
Yeah.
Mostly.
And that's something that I will say is really cool about fifth edition that people actually do get it, right? Like they are making homebrews out there. People will, we just did a little bit of complain about, oh, people make terrible homebrews all the time, but people also make really good homebrews. And often the line between imbalanced and playable is really, really big, right?
Yeah.
Like balance is something that mostly comes up in forums, not really actually at the table, right? People play much less D&D than they think they do. A lot of it is just played in theory craft. And so, which is, again, the importance of play testing, because that's how you're actually going to know whether or not a feature is balanced.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that can kind of combine in weird, unexpected ways,
Mm-hmm.
especially if there's
Mm-hmm.
other homebrew involved. And, like, yeah, I own a lot of homebrew stuff. I like most of it. Uh, there's a lot of people doing really interesting things out there, and most of the time they're even, like, balanced roughly appropriately, which is always fun.
Yeah, that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing all these people's ideas, right? Because people don't have to submit a completely polished, 100% finished homebrew. If they want to, they can just submit an idea like, oh, I would like a knife fighter feat. I want a College of Dance bard. And, if you do not submit the whole thing, we're going to go ahead and write out a rough draft for you and put that out there.
Well, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I want a functioning psionics system. I'm gonna regret saying that.
Yeah.
Ugh, well, I gotta ask before we end this: what is up
Hmm.
with the panda that says "WTF" just a buck behind you?
Oh man. So no one knows I've never talked about this on them before, but in an entirely different life, I was a hardcore hippie, like following the Grateful Dead around on tour and stuff. And so I used to make a whole bunch of Jello shots, like hundreds and hundreds of Jello shots, and then put them on that board and carry it around. So people would buy them off of me for only $1.
I don't know what I expected. It wasn't that. Um,
Oh man, and you don't even I used to have a purple panda hat too, with like the little ears. And hold on. I still got the matching banjo too.
nice. So you just like wander around playing a banjo, selling Jello shots at like Grateful Dead concerts.
What's that?
So you just wander around playing a banjo, selling Jello shots at Grateful Dead concerts.
Yeah, for like 3 years.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Oh, life's strange sometimes.
It really is, man. It really is. Well, that's super cool. It's been great talking to you. Yeah, unless you have something else you want to bring up, I think that's about it.
No, but I just want to say it was really considerate of you. Thank you for inviting me on. Like, it's really hard to get the message out there. People are always competing for everyone's attention on the internet, and for someone to say, "Hey, you know what? We want to give you the opportunity to share your story," that really means a lot to me. So, thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. I like trying to highlight smaller creators. Not everybody's Monty Cook.
Yeah, so make sure you tag me or something when this goes up, and I'll share it on my Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.